As we're sitting here, I'm realizing that the religion I practiced my whole life did a pretty darn good job at making it totally dual, where God was an entity that was unreachable, and my activity as a human was simply to pray and ask for or hope for. And so now I see it the way you guys explain it, and I see the conversations that if I am that divinity, right, then is prayer truly a monologue? And if so, then where does my faith go? Because my faith was always hoping for that unlimited awareness to offer me salvation of some sort. And I'm sure you guys have heard the answer to that before, but I have no idea. I mean, my entire belief system has cracked in 2 days. And I'm pretty unstable right now. So, having grown up in a pretty traditional Catholic household, this is pretty intense. So I need help with prayer and faith. Thank you.
One of the reasons that these retreats are the form of these retreats is the way they are, with plenty of time in between our meetings, not too much silence, no, plenty of conversation, is that this teaching is, as you say, a profound challenge to our most deeply cherished beliefs and feelings. And that can be very destabilizing. And so we gather with this loving community of friends and hold each other and support each other, not just in the meetings, but in between the meetings. And that's a very important aspect of our retreats. So now to specifically what you said about prayer. Do you understand the Mary and Jane metaphor? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes,
okay.
I do.
So take Jane's point of view. She has no idea that she is a limitation of Mary. She knows nothing of Mary, although all there is to her is Mary. She doesn't realize that. So from her point of view, she lives in a world of separate people and separate objects, and she is one amongst innumerable such people. Everything on the inside of her is made out of mind, her thoughts, her feelings, and everything and everyone on the outside of her is made out of stuff called matter. This is the way, this is her fundamental, but this is her belief system. Her identity is crafted around this belief. All her relationships express this belief, all her feelings express this belief. But Jane looks out at her creation, at the creation, and she sees that it is extraordinary. And she wonders, where does it come from? What is it that creates all of this? What was before all of this? And thinking in this way, and she obviously thinks that she is just a tiny, incidental, insignificant little body that is going to last in the scheme of things just a moment. So she has a sense of this vast and extraordinary universe that somehow created everything that she sees, including herself. So she wonders, what is it that created this? Where does this come from? And asking this question, her mind it travels, as it were, through the creation that she sees to something beyond, and she conceives of something at an infinite distance from herself that is somehow outside the universe that she perceives, that must have created this universe. So Jane conceives this creator. Jane conceives this creator, God, as something at an infinite distance from herself, outside of herself, that created her world. And so she then wonders, how could I ever have a relationship with this God at an infinite distance from myself? What would I have to do? And because this God is at an infinite distance from herself and essentially unknowable, the best she can do is believe in it. Pray to it, believe it. She has a feeling for it, and her feeling for God is very true. It comes from her intuition that there is something much bigger than her own finite self that gives rise to all of this. But she conceives of that something in a way that is consistent with her belief in being a separate self. So although her intuition about God or the ultimate reality is true, the way she thinks of it is simply a reflection of her belief in her sense of herself as a separate self. So she conceives of God as the separate other, at an infinite distance from herself. And this is the conventional religious model. What she doesn't know, although she intuits it, but what she doesn't know is that the ultimate reality, the ultimate creator of this extraordinary and vast universe that she perceives, is identical to her very own self. Her very own self, remember, is Mary's mind. And it is Mary's mind that has created the world she perceives. So although she has this intuition, she doesn't yet know that what the world is out there is identical to what she is in here. And so she spends much of her life following exoteric religion, praying to a God at an infinite distance from herself. Anyway, because of this intuition that she has, she is led by a series of apparently chance events to a retreat at Garrison.
I'm Jane. Hi, I'm Jane. Hi, everybody.
And on the retreat at Garrison, she's given a new model of this so-called creator God. She begins to realize that what she is in the depths of herself is the same as what the universe is. That the apparent distinction between herself and all objects and others is only an appearance. That underlying this appearance there is a fundamental unity of being. And that unity of being is accessible to her through the knowledge I am. Because the knowledge I am is the knowledge of being. All that is required is to remove the limitations that we have placed on that being. And then she begins to think about the sayings in the Bible that she was brought up with. When Jesus said, I and my Father are one. What I essentially am and what the universe essentially is are the same being, refracted into a multiplicity and diversity of objects and others, only through the limitations of each of our minds. But behind those limitations, there is this fundamental unity of being. The being in each of us borrows its apparently individual existence from that shared being. And that shared being is what is traditionally called God. And that is why you're quite right that we cannot, that the highest prayer is silent, because Silence is the highest prayer, because we cannot go from ourselves to God. We cannot make any movement from ourselves to God, because any movement from ourselves or away from ourselves would be a movement away from God. There is no pathway from ourselves to God. God is not at an infinite distance from ourselves. God is utterly intimate with. God is the very self of each of us. And because we are already that self, we cannot approach God. We cannot take a step towards God. Any step we take would be an apparent step away. In fact, we cannot even step away from God, because we take ourselves with us wherever we go. So when we realize this, we realize that praying to God is simplistic. I don't mean to criticize it, because before Jane knows any better, it's all she can do, because Jane has this intuition. The ultimate reality is much bigger than myself, so she has this intuition, and because of her conditioning, she conceives God at an infinite distance from herself and supplicates. She prays to that God. So I'm not criticizing that. She doesn't know any better. But in time, her understanding is refined and refined and refined and refined, until she realizes that the God that she has been praying to is the very self of herself. And there is a beautiful line that I heard once from an Italian monk who said, "Lord, thou art the love with which I love thee." I thought that the Lord was at an infinite distance from myself, and that I was loving that God. So my love started in my heart and proceeded, went for an infinite distance to my God. And then I realized, thou art the very love in my heart with which I was loving me. You are closer to me than myself. You are my very self. I cannot love thee because you are that love. You are at the origin of myself. You are never the destiny. You can never be a destiny. You can never be something I travel to. You are always where I travel from.
So is faith, or what I've called faith up to today, as sort of a surrender to the infinite consciousness?
Exactly. Exactly.
Just
yes.
As is.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. It's the complete surrender of everything that seems to limit you. The complete letting go, the surrendering of everything that seems to limit you, and the yes, surrender it's another name for self-inquiry. It's another name for this traveling back, King Lear traveling back to John Smith. It's another surrender and self-inquiry are the same thing. It's the letting go of everything that seems to limit you, the letting go of everything that is superfluous to you. Letting go, letting go, letting go, until you arrive at that element of yourself that you cannot let go of, your naked, self-aware being. Yes, so if you have this feeling for God, so in your case, think of it more as surrender rather than self-inquiry. It's the same thing, it's exactly the same thing.